Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmadgurubhyo Namaha Srutismriti-Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shri Medha Dakshinamurti Swamine Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhetamastu ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste once again, everyone.
Namaste, Guruji.
Mritkaryam sakalam ghatadi satatam mrinmatramevabhitah tadvat sajjanitam sadatmakamidham sanmatramevakhilam yasman nasti satah param kimapi tat satyam sa atma swayam tasmat tattvamasi prashantamamalam brahmadvayam yat param. Brahma satyam jagan mitya jivo brahmaiva naparaha anena vedyam satchatram iti vedanta dindimaha. So as we have discussed in the last class, the cardinal teaching of Vedanta is generally presented in the form of three components. Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So from verses 66 to 80, the Acharya dealt with all the three components of this cardinal teaching. From 66 to 73, he covered Brahma Satyam and Jagan Mithya. And the most important component, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha, which is the core teaching of Vedanta, we covered from verses 74 to 80. And as I mentioned, all these verses are based on the teachings of the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. Thus, the entire 6th chapter of the Upanishad beautifully presents this Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, and Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. The Upanishad establishes that Brahman is the absolute reality and the Jagat, the world, is unreal or has only seeming reality. And this was explained with the example of three examples, with the help of three examples. Clay and earthenware example, gold and ornaments example, and iron and hardware example. In these examples, the substance, that is the clay or gold or iron, is the cause, which is the reality, and the products, namely earthenware, ornaments, and hardware, are nothing but different forms of the substance with separate names. So the karanam, the cause, is the reality, and the products are only names and forms which are unreal. The substance subsists even when the names and forms are destroyed or changed. And drawing a parallel, this Upanishad says Karanam is Satyam because that alone remains in all three periods of time. And Karyam, the product, they are Mithya because they do not exist in all the three periods of time, past, present, and future. The products have a date of birth and the date of death. And even in between, even when the products exist, they borrow their existence from the cause alone. Thus, using the clay and pot example, Karanam Satyam, Karyam Mithya argument was used. Vacharambanam Vikaro Namadevam, Mrittika Ityeva Satyam. That was stated. The cause, the Karanam, clay, which is the only reality, it's the only Satyam. Karyam, the pot, is Mithya. And extending that, Karanam Brahman is Satyam, Karyam, the world, is Mithya. This was established. Thereafter, the Chandogya Upanishad says that Brahman, which is Satyam, is the truth behind the entire creation, which includes your own created body, mind, sense complex. Behind that complex is the real you. Your real you is nothing but that Brahman. Karanam Brahman is behind your own Karya Shariram, your own Karya mind. And that Brahman is available as Atma, is available as Chaitanyam, as pure consciousness. All these ideas, Adi Shankara brilliantly condenses these in one sloka. Full 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad condenses in one sloka. That is the brilliance. So he says, Mritkaryam Sakalam Ghatati Satatam Mrinmatra Meva Bhitaha. All the earthenware born out of earth or clay are nothing but clay alone. Mrinmatram eva, clay alone. Names are many, but the thing clay and thing is, the object is clay and clay alone. What you call pot is nothing but clay with a superficial nama rupa. So the non-variable clay with variable nama rupa is alone called the pot. Sometimes it is called the pot, sometimes it is called the lid, sometimes it may be called what, a cup. But behind all these names and forms, the only reality is clay. Before the creation of the pot, the clay was there. During the existence of the pot, the clay is there. And after the destruction of the pot, the clay will be there. Because what is destruction? When the pot is broken into pieces, what remains is only the clay, with which the pot was produced or made. Therefore, he says, Mrin matram eva satatam. Clay alone is there all the time. Satatam means all the time. A pot is nothing but only clay, which is real with superficial nama rupa. Similarly, Advaitam Brahman alone was, is, and ever will be Abhitaha everywhere. And this idea he conveys in the next line. Tadvat sajjanitam sadatmakam sanmatrameva idam akilam. He says. Idam akilam, this entire world, Tadvat, in the same manner, extending the same argument. Sat Janitam, Idam Akilam. Idam Akilam means, as I said, entire pluralistic universe, which is a product. According to scientists, after Big Bang alone it evolved. And this product is called universe, the entire cosmos, including all galaxies, living beings, black holes, everything. And which includes our body, mind, sense complex also, that we must never forget. So the entire universe, Sat Janitam, is born out of Sat, the Brahman. They are all created by Sat or Brahman, which is of the nature of existence. And of course, whenever Sat is said in Upanishad, we must include Chit, consciousness, and Ananda also, limitlessness. So, Sat Janitam, that Brahman's product alone is this entire creation. And Shankaracharya uses the word Sat because in Chandogya, 6th chapter, Brahman is called Sat. That is why Shankaracharya wants to say, I have taken all these from Chandogya only. It is not my own theory, my dear. That's what he is very clearly conveying. Because there is a very big misconception among many people. They feel that Advaita Vedanta is a philosophy of Adi Shankar. So they try to dilute the importance of Advaita Vedanta by saying that it is not God's creation, it is a human creation, which is very wrong. Whatever works Shankaracharya has done, it is only interpretation of what is there in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in Brahma Sutra. Even Brahma Sutra, you can call it as a human effort. But that is based upon the Upanishads, which is the original text rather. And all this Advaita Vedanta is the core teaching of the Upanishads. Upanishad after Upanishad talks about Advaitam only. So now coming back, the entire universe is born out of Brahman, is also Brahman alone all the time. Therefore, Sat Atmakam. It is of the nature of Brahman or existence. This word, Sadatmakam, is a very significant word, which requires some deeper analysis and understanding. Therefore, I request all of you to focus and concentrate, and listen carefully. See, normally, when we use an adjective, it qualifies a noun, isn't it? An adjective states the attributes of the substance indicated by the noun. So, our adjective reveals the attribute, noun reveals the substance. For example, we say red rose. Here, rose is the substance, the noun, and redness is the adjective, the attribute. Or another example, soft pillow, we say. Here, pillow is the substance, the noun, and soft is the adjective, the attribute. Therefore, the general rule is noun and adjective reveal substance and attribute respectively. This is the general rule rather. But we must remember that we cannot apply this general rule all the time. There are exceptions to this rule which we have to carefully note. And for that alone, three examples are given in Chandogya Upanishad. The products that we refer to as golden ornaments, earthen pot, or iron hardware, in all these, golden is the adjective to ornament, right? Earthen is the adjective to pot. Iron is the adjective to hardware. Or we take the example, wooden chair. In this, wooden is the adjective to chair, to chair. A chair is the substance. Wooden is the adjective. Now you note carefully. In these special examples, the adjectives do not reveal the attribute. Adjectives reveal the content or the substance or the truth of the products. Carefully understand this. Normally, adjectives will reveal the attribute of the substance, which is denoted by the noun. But in these examples, the adjective reveal the content or the substance or truth of these products. When I say earthen pot, earthen is not an attribute dependent on the pot. But earthen reveals the earth or clay, which is the very content of the pot. In fact, here the noun pot depends upon the clay. Similarly, golden ornaments, when I say, golden is not an attribute of ornament. In fact, it reveals gold, which is the real content, the truth of the ornaments. In fact, if you think about it, there is no ornament in the absence of gold. So the noun is dismissed by the adjective. Clay or earth dismisses the pot. In the absence of clay, there is no pot. Gold dismisses the ornament in the sense that there is no ornament which is separate from gold. When I say a wooden chair, the adjective wood dismisses the chair by pointing out that there is no chair other than wood. Therefore, there are two types of adjectives. Content revealing adjectives, truth revealing adjectives. Now, when Vedanta says, when you say a man exists, he is an existent man. He is conscious, alive. Even when he is in the hospital and all, he is still alive and conscious. So an existent man, a conscious man, happy man, these are three adjectives. Now Vedanta asks, all these three adjectives come under which category? Attribute revealing category or content revealing category? This is a very big inquiry. It is not a very light thing, you know. I mean, this is the depths to which the inquiry goes in Vedanta. There should be absolute clarity in what I understand, for which I will have to research into so many things. In fact, not only Vedanta, this is a big inquiry in all Indian schools of philosophy. Because all expressions, they are analyzed to find out what exactly they are conveying. There are other schools like Nayayika, Vaisheshika systems and all. They are all considered to be logicians. They treat all these three as attribute revealing adjectives. Existence is the attribute of the person. Similarly, consciousness is an attribute. Happiness is an attribute. This is how other schools, and even a lay person concludes, isn't it? If you are told happy man, what is the adjective? Man is noun, happy is the adjective. It reveals the attribute of man. Right? But Vedanta says you have to study Vedanta sufficiently to understand that existence is not the adjective of man, or for that matter, the world. When you say the world exists, existence refers to Brahman, which is the content, the truth of the world. World is not a noun, world is not a substance. World is like an attribute. Like an attribute, because world depends on the existence, Brahman, the reality. Similarly, conscious man, when you say consciousness is not an attribute, consciousness is the content, the truth. Similarly, Ananda, happiness is not an attribute of mine. Happiness is my nature, it is my content. In fact, it is the cause of the universe. Happiness is the cause of the universe. Taittiriya Upanishad, Bhriguvalli says, Anando Brahmeti Vyajanat Anandadhyeva Kalvimani Bhutani Jayante Anandena Jatani Jivanti Anandam Prayantyabi Samvashiti Samvishanti Anandam Prayatyanyabi Samvishanti. It says happiness is the fundamental truth. From happiness, Anando Brahmeti Vyajanar Anandadhyeva Kalvimani Bhutani Jayante. From happiness, the world evolves. In happiness, the world exists. Into happiness, the world resolves. Samvishanti. So happiness is not an attribute. Happiness is the Vedic reality, the truth, the content. So if you want to describe substance attribute relationship, existence, consciousness, happiness is the substance, and world is an attribute which is mithya. Existence is the substance, world is mithya attribute. Consciousness is substance, world is mithya attribute. Happiness is the substance, world is mithya attribute. And it says, Vyajanat, may you understand this. Therefore, he says Sadatmakam, Sat Atmakam, Sat na guna hai, na to Sat gunakam, but Sat Atmakam. Sat Atma Swarupam Yasya. And therefore, Sat is also the Karanam. Means the world is of the nature of Brahman, the existence. Therefore, he says, Sat Atmakam idam Sat Matram eva akhilam. The entire world is nothing but one substance. Substance, because ultimately we say world is not a substance also at this time. Let us assume it is a substance. World is not a substance also. There is only one Sat, pure existence. There is actually really no world. World is an attribute which is nothing but Nama Rupa. Nama Rupa is temporary, comes and goes, ever changing. And Brahman is like the substance. Therefore, Brahman is the substance, world is like an attribute. Why? Because the world depends on Brahman. And therefore he says, Sadmatrameva, everything is existence only. Just as all furniture is wood. I mean, talking about wooden furniture. These days we have got iron furniture, everything. But whatever it is, the content is what we are focusing on. All ornaments are gold. All the world is Brahman with different names and forms. Of course, all these we have discussed earlier. But as I said, here Acharya is consolidating, summarizing the entire teaching so far. So, Sanmatram eva akhilam, entire creation is Brahman alone. And he says, Yasmatna asti satah param kimapi. Satah param, other than Brahman. The pure existence consciousness principle. Kimapina asti, there is nothing else. So naturally, the question will come, how do you say nothing else is there? Because the world is there which we are experiencing. You may call it Vyavaharika Satyam and all, but it is Satyam only. For that we say, Brahman alone appears as the world with names and forms. Therefore, should you not talk about Nama-Rupa world as a second thing? We cannot count Nama-Rupa as a separate thing. There is one actor, let us say Shivaji Ganeshan or I'll say Amitabh Bachchan. He acts in one film with a different name and different makeup. Does it make it two people? One Amitabh Bachchan and another person, whatever be the name. Let us say his name is Vijay. That was the common name of Amitabh Bachchan in most of the films. So there is a Vijay and there is an Amitabh Bachchan. Are they two different people? Vijay is nothing but Nama Rupa of that one Amitabh Bachchan alone. Isn't it? Therefore, we cannot count the Nama Rupa as a separate thing, as an independent thing. Because that Vijay character has its existence borrowed from Amitabh Bachchan. Nama Rupa doesn't have an existence of its own or their own. Their existence is the borrowed existence. When you say Nama Asti, name is, that isness, that existence of the name is borrowed from Brahman alone, from Sat alone. Similarly, when you say Rupam Asti, the existence of the shape is also borrowed from Brahman. Since names and forms have got borrowed existence, Vedanta says they are as good as non-existent. You can ignore them. Swami Paramathananda says it is like complimenting someone. You look so beautiful in this dress. It looks like a compliment. But if you analyze this statement, what does it really mean? You look so beautiful in this dress means beauty is qualified by dress. That means what? In this dress you are beautiful. If this dress was not there, I don't want to say further. Similarly, when I say Nama Rupa has borrowed existence, borrowed reality, it means Nama Rupa is mithya. Again, go back. Vacharambanam vikaro nama deyam mritika ityeva satyam. Therefore, since Nama Rupa is mithya, it cannot be counted as substance number two. Therefore, when somebody asks how many things exist, as a Vedanta student, you should not say Brahman and Namarupa. You should say Brahma Matram, Sanmatram, because Namarupa is as good as non-existent. Therefore, Acharya says, Kimapi na asti. Of course, when he say na asti, we must add as good as na asti. As good as it is not there. Experientially available. The world is experientially available, but does not have its own existence. And that which does not have its own existence, Vedanta dismisses that as mithya. It's like dream or a mirage water, right? A mirage water, it looks real from a distance. When you see in a desert, you see a pool of water. Oh my God, there is water. Let me go and see. Let me go and drink that water. I'm feeling very thirsty. But the more you go near, you find the water was mithya. It was only an appearance because of certain conditions. There is no water actually at all. That is the reality. And therefore only Lord Krishna said, Matstani sarva bhutani. The world is situated in me, experientially available. And immediately in the next sloka he says, Nacha matstani bhutani. World is not really there. Our Bhagavad Gita students we have seen all these things. So, kimapina asti. We can add yasmat. Because earlier he said tasmat, so tasmat, therefore. Tasmat tat satyam, therefore, that Brahman alone is the truth of everything. Tat satyam. And sa atma. Therefore, that Brahman alone is the inner content, inner essence of everything that exists. When you say a remote star exists, that star also has Brahman as its content, because existence, the very easiness of the star, Brahman alone is supplying. Therefore, Brahman is Atma, the content of everything. The word Atma means self or content. We can use the expressions, gold is the Atma of all ornaments. Wood is the Atma of all wooden furniture. Similarly, Brahman is Atma of all things and beings. That means what? That Brahman must be the content of me, the Jiva also. I as an individual Jiva also, being part of the creation, should have that Brahman as the Atma. And therefore, my self is Brahman. And therefore he says, Sa Atma Swayam. Swayam means by itself, is the content of all. Tasmat Tattvam Asi. Therefore, the bottom line is what? Tattvam Asi. Oh student, I hope you are all listening, huh? Not totally got lost in all this analysis. Anybody is feeling sleepy, please put some water on your face. So Tattvamasi, essentially you are that Brahman. Brahman is yourself. When the Acharya says Tattvamasi, the student should not say Tattvamasi. He should say Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Brahman is myself. First I say myself is Brahman, and then I say Brahman is myself. From Lakshyartha angle, I am Brahman. Tasmat Tattvamasi. Lakshyartha Drishtya. And then he goes on to describe that Brahman. Acharya goes on to describe that Brahman. Prashantam Amalam Brahma Advayam Yat Param. Prashantam, which is ever tranquil, whatever be the condition of the mind. The mind may be turbulent, but you, the consciousness, you only reveal the turbulent mind. You don't get attached to the turbulent mind. You are always tranquil. You are not disturbed. Never say, I am disturbed. Of course, the poor mind will have some issues. We will tackle that. But I am not disturbed. So, prashantam, ever shantam, deeply calm. Then amalam. Amalam means ever shuddham. There is no impurity in you, the Brahman, the Atma, which is ever pure. What about Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha, etc.? Those impurities are there, but they belong to the mind. Mind has to be handled. Mind can be impure. Mind can be purified also. Mind requires certain attention. But never say, I am impure. I, the Atma, cannot be impure at all. Therefore, Amalam. Then Brahma Advayam Yat Param. Advayam means I am non-dual. I am the essence behind this entire world. This world does not exist separate from me. I am the non-dual Brahman. Advayam Yat Param, which is Param, the absolute reality. That Brahman, which is beyond time, space, action, reaction, relationships, etc. I am that reality. Whereas Ishvara is within the empirical world. Ishvara is Brahman plus Maya. So Ishvara has got action. Ishvara responds to actions of the people by giving karma, pharam, etc. Ishvara is doing that. Ishvara will be a karta with costume. But Ishvara as he is in Brahman form, as content, Brahman content is akarta. Actually, Bhagavan says in the Gita, 4th chapter, Tasya kartaram api ma vidya kartara avyayam. Tasya kartaram api ma, with costumes, I do everything. But remember, Arjuna, vidhi akartaram avyayam. May you know that, Arjuna. The undressed I, the uncostumed I is akarta. With Maya costume, I become Ishvara and Karta. And what Bhagavan says, Jiva also can say. With Panchakosha costume, I am Karta. Without this Panchakosha or Sharira Trayam, I am Akarta. So this sloka is a very beautiful summary of the entire teaching. Packed all the ideas in this sloka. Now comes another very solid verse. In Chandogya, as I said, the example is given of clay, gold, and iron. Shankaracharya gives his own version by taking the dream example, which he borrows from Mandukya Karika. Because dream is an ideal example for revealing the mithyatvam of the universe, the unreality of the universe. Dream example is a very ideal example, and that is why Gaudapadacharya uses that example in the Mandukya Karika. So this verse, which we are now going to discuss, is a summary of Mandukya Karika, second chapter. So the previous verse was Chandogya Upanishad, sixth chapter. This verse, which we are now going to see, is the summary of Mandukya Karika's second chapter. We will read verse number 82. निद्रा कल्पित देश काल विषय यात्रादि सर्वं यथा मिथ्या तद्वत् इहापि जागृति जगत् मिथ्या तद्वत् इहापि जागृति जगत् स्वाज्ञान कार्यत्वतः यस्मादेवमिदं शरीरकरण प्राणाहमाद्यप्सत माद्यप्यस्स not getting correctly. यस्मादेवमिदं शरीरकरण प्राणाहमाद्यप्यसत् तस्मात् तत्त्वमसि प्रशान्तममलं ब्रह्माद्वयं यत्परम्. The last sentence is repeated from the previous sloka. Anyhow, let's see the Anvaya. Yatha nidra kalpita desha kala vishaya jnatradi sarvam mithya tadvate iha api jagrati swa ajnana karyatvatah jagat. Full stop. Yasmat evam idam sharira karana prana ahamadi asat tasmat yatparam prashantam amalam advayam tad brahmatvam asi. Yatha, just as nidra kalpita desha kala vishaya jnatradi sarvam, all that is created in the dream, like what? Desha, space, kala, time, vishaya, objects, jnatradi, experiencer, etc. Jnatra adi, jnatradi, experiencer, etc. Mithya, are not real. Tadvat, similarly, iha api, here too, jagrati, in the waking state, swa ajnana karyatvatah, because of being a product of self-ignorance, jagat, the world, is not real. We have to understand. Yasmat, because evam, similarly, idam, this, sharira karana prana ahamadi, body, mind, sense complex, prana, ahankara, etc. two, asat, are not real. Tasma, therefore, yat, which is param, free from all limitations, prashantam, free from all modifications, or we can say which is tranquil, amalam, free from impurities, advayam, non-dual, tat brahma, that brahman, tvamasi, you are. Another profound verse. Just as all that is created in dream, like space, time, object, knower, etc., is not real, similarly, here too in the waking state, the world being a product of self-ignorance is not real. And because of this reason, this body, mind, sense complex, prana, ahankara, etc. are also not real. Therefore, you are that non-dual Brahman which is free from modifications, impurity, and limitations. This is the meaning of the sloka in a nutshell. In fact, if you recall, we have discussed this example long before when I introduced the concept of mithya for the first time. You have to go back. Some of the things you have to remember. In verse number 17, there he said, ahankaradi dehantan bandhan ajnana kalpitan. So there, in that sloka, the topic of mithya was introduced. And I gave the same dream example. And there, that example was taken from Acharya's this sloka only. So being a very important example which we can directly relate to, because day in and day out we experience it personally. I am briefly presenting the dream example again. As a waker, I don't experience the dream. Unless, of course, you are a daydreamer. Yeah. Some people dream with their eyes open. But we are not talking about that dream. We are talking about the real dream, night dreamers. So, as a waker, I didn't experience the dream because as a waker, I don't create or project the dream. Therefore, to project the dream, I first require a power. What is that power? That's a sleeping power. Power of sleep, nidra shakti. Because that's also shakti, because it is nidra shakti. Shakti means power. And sleep is a very great faculty we have got. Great blessing also. Of late, there is so much research is going on about sleep. What all the benefits that sleep gives, what all harms are done if there is sleep deprivation. In Vedanta also, sleep is considered to be very important. Not because in Vedanta class many students gain that power, but to understand Vedanta, sleep, there's a dream example is very, very important, very, very useful, and for which sleep is necessary. So the moment I enter sleep, then with the Nidra Shakti, I project an unreal dream. There, when we discussed the 17th chapter, we talked about Avarana, Vikshepa, etc. I will not go into all those details because you have already been exposed to that. So I will just very briefly, simply, I explain the dream example. So when the waker in the dream, as a dreamer, projects the dream, he becomes a different person, a dreamer. So not only I, the waker, project the dream, I lend reality to the dream also. Thus, the dream has got borrowed reality. How do we say that? Now, imagine a situation. A person who is a waker is sleeping and he is having a dream. In the course of that dream, that person dies. Will the dream continue? If the dream were an independent dream, it had independent existence, that should continue. But the dream will stop. Why? Because the reality to the dream was led by this waker who is now dead. He himself has become dysfunctional. So he cannot lend reality. And therefore, the dream has got borrowed reality. And with that borrowed reality, the dream world appears real for the dreamer. For a dreamer, in the dream appears real with borrowed reality. And the dreamer, which is a different person than Veka, right? Waker is not experiencing anything when he is sleeping, but the dreamer is experiencing the dream world. So the dreamer appreciates or looks at the dream world as real. But when he wakes up, he realizes, I myself am in fact a waker, not a dreamer, which he doesn't know when he is dreaming. After waking, he realizes that I am in fact a waker who alone projected and gave reality to the dream world. Now Shankaracharya says, you have to extend the same process, the same idea to the waker and the waker's world also. Therefore, you have to talk about the projection of the waker's world. And this is what we discussed earlier as Vikshepa Shakti and all that. Now the question is, who projected the waker's world? Because dreamer's world is projected by the waker. But who projects the waker's world? Because I am the waker who experiences the waker's world as real. But who projected the waker's world and gave reality to that? For that, I will use the word super waker, which we have used earlier also. Super waker, Ishvara or Brahman. Since we have used the word super waker, we will continue to use that. There is one super waker who projects the waker's world, the unreal waker's world. So the super waker projects the unreal waker's world. Not only he projects the unreal waker's world, he lends reality to the waker's world. Then with that borrowed reality, the waker's world appears real for the waker. So, because of the reality borrowed from the super waker, the world appears to be real for the waker. And this waker, waking up into super wakerhood, is called spiritual awakening or becoming a jnani. Realization, all that words, so many words they use. And when the ajnani veka becomes a jnani veka, a spiritually enlightened veka, that jnani veka realizes that I am not really a veka, I am in fact the super veka. Just as on waking up, the dreamer realizes, I am not the dreamer, I am the waker. Similarly, the waker, on attaining the knowledge, realizes the fact that I am super waker and not a waker. And therefore, that jnani is able to say, along with God, I am projecting this waker's world. I am giving reality to the waker's world. And that is why a jnani or a super waker can claim, I am Ishwaraha, Srishti Sthiti Laya Karta. Mayyeva Sakalam Jatam, Mayi Sarvam Pratishtitam, Mayi Sarvam Layam Yati, Tad Brahma Advayam Asmi Aham. Kaivalya Upanishad, we have seen it number of times. Taittiriya says, gives the same idea. Aham Rekshasya Re Riva, Kirti Prishtam Gire Riva, Urdhva Pavitro, Vajinivas, Swamritamasmi, Dravinagum Savarchasam, Sumeda Amritokshitaha, Iti Trishankor Vedanu Vachanam. Same idea, Upanishad after Upanishad conveys. And Adi Shankara in Manisha Panchakam states it very beautifully. Brahmaivahamidam jagatcha sakalam chinmatra vistaritam sarvam chaitada vidyaya trigunaya asesham maya kalpitam ittam yasya dridamati sukatare Nitye pare nirmale chandalostu satu dvijostu guruhu ityesha manisha mama. If you look at all Vedanta texts, this is the one cardinal message which every Vedanta text reveals, that Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. So every Jnani declares, I am the super waker. I am the projector of the world. Like Shankaracharya says in Manisha Panchakam, Brahmaiva idam jagatcha sakalam chinmatra avastaritam sarvam. I am that super waker Brahman with Maya Shakti. And with my Maya Shakti, I have projected Sarvam Chaitata Vidyaya Trigunaya. All this Trigunatmika. I have projected. With the help of Vikshepa Shakti, the Mula Vidya, the Maya, I have projected this unreal world. No doubt, the world appears real, but its reality is borrowed. Thus, a Jnani knows that the world is unreal, is projected by me, and which includes my own body, mind, sense complex. They all belong to Mithya Prapancha. The only difference is when the dreamer becomes a waker, the dream world disappears. But when the waker becomes a jnani or a super waker, at that time, the waker's world doesn't disappear. It is only because of his knowledge the jnani dismisses this world as unreal. But he still continues to experience the world, continues to live in this world. So a jnani continues playing a double role. For the world, he is a waker. For himself and other jnanis, he is a super waker. Therefore, every jnani is a waker come super waker. And that's why Lord Krishna says, I am karta, I am akarta. Both he says. And this is said in this sloka. Nidra kalpita desha kala vishaya jnatradi sarvam. Sarvam means the entire dream world. Swapna jagat. Consisting of what? Desha, dream space, which is different from the waker's space. In fact, sometimes we will see things in the dream world which we cannot recall ever having experienced in the waker's world. Some houses, some rooms, some vast space, we will see in the dream world, but we cannot recall having seen that in the waking state. And that is why inside the head, the waker is able to have a huge universe, because the universe requires a huge space. That space is also projected. Thus, dream space, kala, dream time, vishaya, dream beings and objects, jnatradi. As I said, jnatri plus adi is jnatradi, sandhi rule is there. It becomes jnatradi. The experiences, the subject-object duality plus space and time to accommodate all of that. All of them are what? Nidra kalpitam. They are all projected falsely with the help of Nidra Shakti. With the help of the power of sleep. And why has he said that? He says, Yatha Mithya. Since all these things are Mithya, just as all this dream world is a Mithya, Tadvat, like that, Iha api Jagrati Jagat. This waking world also is like that only. exactly like that. We'll see more in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद
Everyone. Thank you
Dhanyawada.
so much. Hari Om.
Dhanyawada, Guruji.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank
Please
you very
come
much,
for the
Guruji.
next class and don't run away after this.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
Too
Thank
heavy.
you. It is certainly very heavy, there's no doubt.
Now after this, it will become very
Little easier.
Yeah, you see. This was the toughest portion. As I warned you, I gave you a warning. This is the toughest portion. Actually, that's why I said, like Tattva Bodha is for a very beginner. This is not only for beginners, it is for a slightly advanced beginners.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Namaskar.
Hari Om. Thank you. Yes, Sulekha ji.
Hari Om, Guruji.
Hari Om. Namaste.
Thank you for the class today. I have two questions. My first question is regarding the adjective that you had first described in the beginning of the class, that the adjective is actually the true essence. Is that correct? Of the
No, see, the noun adjective relationships, normally adjective is that which qualifies the noun, right?
yes,
It will actually state an attribute of the noun. That is what is adjective. Normally in our day-to-day parlance, we use it, right? But
yes,
in Vedanta, the adjective actually is the content and the noun is the product rather. So whenever we say golden ornament, what is the content? It's gold, right? Because golden ornament, when we say the word golden appears as an adjective to ornament, correct?
yes,
Normally what happens, noun is the content, adjective is the qualifier, the attribute. So when we say golden ornament, that means the attribute or the adjective is golden, ornament should be the content, correct? If we apply the normal general rule of how we understand the relationship between noun and adjective. But when we analyze the word, the expression golden ornament, we find that actually gold is the which we have taken as adjective is the content, and ornament, which is the noun, which is actually qualifying gold. But when we say golden ornament or say wooden stool, right? Wooden chair, we say that. But when we say wooden chair, the wooden is the content and chair is actually the attribute of that content. Because we make chair out of wood only. So normally what happens, content doesn't change, but the attributes keep changing, isn't it?
yes,
But here, so normally what we'll say, when content doesn't change, attributes changes. Content is the noun, attribute is the adjective. This is our general understanding. But here, what we are taking it as adjective is the content. Just the opposite happens. Is the content. And what we take it as noun is the attribute. So that we have to understand very carefully when we are studying Vedanta. Because if we apply the normal rule, normal understanding which we use in a day-to-day parlance, then we will be totally confused. So these are all, and the fact of the matter is, if you analyze the language and the language that we use, expressions that we use, there is a lot of possibilities of interpreting that, which we normally don't even look at. So here, Vedanta is forcing you to look at a possibility where our normal application of noun and adjective rule is reversed.
So then the names and the forms, which we are considering as the attributes, are
Exactly.
the mithya.
They are attributes. The names and forms. So what is an attribute? Attribute is changing. Attribute can change. Content cannot change. Isn't it?
Thank you, Guruji. Yes.
The
Thank
clay
you.
is the content. It will not change. But you can, there are so many attributes like a pot, a cup, a plate, a lid. So many things. They are all attributes of clay. They will keep on changing. Even when they change, the content is not remains the same, rather it doesn't undergo change. That is what Vedanta is talking about, Brahman and the world. If we understand this, then we will understand what exactly is the relationship with Brahman and world. Why do we say it is mithya? Why do we say the world is mithya? Because of this reason only. World is changing. That which is changing cannot be real. Because once you say what is changing is real, that means you are talking about so many realities. Today, what is real becomes unreal tomorrow because it has changed. So, Vedanta considers that only as reality which is unchanging, which remains the same. To understand all these, only all these examples are given and explanations are given rather.
Thank you, Guruji. That
Clear now?
that is clear and more to contemplate, I think, for this week,
Yes,
especially.
yes. You have to contemplate on all these things.
Yes. Thank you, Guruji. My second question is regarding consciousness and borrowed consciousness. So borrowed consciousness then are the names and the forms, which are mithya, and the one consciousness, the reality, is Brahman.
Yes.
Which is self-effulgent, self
or Atma or Brahman, pure consciousness.
And the borrowed consciousness.
Not borrowed consciousness. Objects are borrowing the consciousness from Brahman to exist.
And they are considered then non-existent because they are borrowing the consciousness, correct?
Sorry, come again?
So if they are borrowing the consciousness, they have no consciousness of their own. These are the names and forms.
Yes.
They have no consciousness of their forms. Are they then considered as non-existent?
Not because of that. See, consciousness of their own, there are three aspects. One is existence, another is consciousness, another is limitlessness. Okay, Sat, Chit and Ananda. Okay, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Now we are only looking at one part of it, which is Sat part, which is existence. And we say that all the objects, they are not real. On their own, they don't exist, but they appear to be existing only because they are borrowing the existence from Brahman. It is just like you understand moonlight. Moon does not have any light of its own. Correct? But moon appears on a full moon day, appears very big, bright and lovely. Is it the moon's own light? Moon does not have any light. It is all borrowed light from the sun that the moon appears to be very bright. Similarly, all objects, this entire world, does not have existence of its own. They borrow existence from Brahman. When you come to consciousness, I will just add that so that it's very clear in your mind. Consciousness lends consciousness to living beings. Non-living beings cannot reflect that consciousness. A rock or a stone cannot reflect that consciousness. So they are still, we call them objects or non-living beings, correct? So only those which are able to reflect the consciousness, they have become sentient. Without consciousness, they are only dead bodies. So they also borrow consciousness from Brahman and then they become alive. So existence is one aspect of this. Consciousness is another aspect of it. So that is how we have to understand how Brahman is lending existence and consciousness to this entire world. And that is why the world appears to be alive, kicking, transactional, real. If you remove Brahman from the scene, there will be no world. You get that? Understand? These are all, little bit difficult for us to understand unless we continue to have this thought, think about it. And we have a lot of examples for that. For example, for existence, I gave you the example of moonlight, right?
Yes.
Another example is the sun is rising, the sun is setting. Are they real? Are sunrise and sunset real?
No.
Reflect on that. The sun doesn't move at all we know. We know that the sun is fixed. Still, because of our ignorance, we say sun rises and sun sets. Where rising and setting has movement, isn't it?
Yes.
And we say sun doesn't move. Is it not contradictory? Our own expressions are totally contradictory.
Yes.
So the sunrise and sunset, when we say it is mithya, actually there is no sun rising, there is no sun setting. It is a mithya. It appears to be rising and setting, but there is no sunrise, there is no sunset. There is a sun which is at a fixed place. But because of the movement of the earth, it appears to rise and set. So that sunrise, sunset is mithya. A mithya experience, which is not real. What is the reality? Fixed place for sun, unmoving sun is the reality. So this is all these examples which are around us. If we try to understand those examples, contemplate on those examples, think about those examples, we will be able to easily assimilate about this mithyatvam of the world also, rather.
How can we contact? Thank you, Guruji. I think that's even more to think about in the next few years or this lifetime. But how can we then, if we are, for example, just as another thought, if we are, for example, in this dream world, the dream of the super waker, and we are still within the dream, as a waker, how can we, if there's no movement, how can we become the super waker? How does that process happen? Where if there's no movement to go from the waker, or no evolution or no journey to happen, how does the waker become a super waker? Maybe this question is...
A person becomes a super waker when he understands the reality of this entire thing. Reality of Jiva, Jagat and Brahman. Reality of what Ishvara is, reality of what Jiva is, and reality of what this Jagat is. Once that person understands, assimilates that knowledge very clearly without any doubt, he becomes a super waker. It is not a physical journey, it is an intellectual journey. It is a journey of starting from saying that sun rises, sun sets, to reaching a situation where you understand fully there is no question of sunrise, sunset. It is merely an appearance. Because of my ignorance, I thought that sun is rising and setting. Every day morning when the sun is rising, I get up and do Sandhya Vandanam and all. Mithya. I don't mean don't do Sandhya Vandanam. You can stop doing Sandhya Vandanam once you have become a super maker.
But
That's
even that
why
word,
Sannyasis are, exempt from all these rituals.
right. Thank you, Guruji. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Even
tell me.
that word journey, I mean, I think everything has to be contemplated so carefully then, because in my mind, or even in our in the classes, the word journey or that it's an intellectual process. Even the word process or journey to me indicates movement, and we're trying to come to a point, or maybe we recognize or understand where there is no movement. And even to get to the point where there's no movement, it seems as if we're moving even in a direction of understanding. And so I don't know if there's again, that word process or any of these words to me implies within the word that there is movement or there is change. We're changing from ignorance to knowledge even. How does that happen when there's considered no movement in realization?
Because we always understand certain terms in the light of our own background. The moment we say movement, our orientation is what? Moving from place A to place B.
Mhm.
Correct?
Yes.
Physically traversing a distance is what we call a movement. Correct? Now, can you tell me which is the fastest moving thing in the earth?
I
Which
would
is
say
the
our thought.
fastest moving thing on the earth? Can you tell me?
I would say thought.
What?
Thought. Our
Thought.
thoughts.
Mind.
Mind.
You can, sitting there in Canada, you can immediately send your mind within split second to India. Right?
Yes.
Is there any physical movement involved?
No.
Your thought has moved from Canada to India?
No.
So whenever we say the movement,
Mm.
it does not necessarily mean a physical movement, which is our normal understanding. So similarly, when we say a thought can move, intellectually our understanding also can move.
Yes.
Understanding can move from lack of understanding to fully understanding. And in the middle, there will be clearance of doubts so that the full understanding is reached. That is also a movement only. So when you actually reinterpret, logically, I'm not saying that just for the sake of this you have to reinterpret, but all these meanings can fit into that particular expression movement, correct?
Yes.
Now, all that Vedanta says is that we are not talking, when we talk about moksha, we are not talking about physical movement. We are talking about the intellectual movement. You are ignorant, you become knowledgeable. That is that because knowledge takes place only in the intellect, the buddhi, isn't it?
Yes.
So that is what is that. So when your intellect moves from a state of ignorance to the state of fully doubt plus self-knowledge, that is what is the movement we are talking about. That is what is moksha. That is what is jnana. So you need not necessarily take the words literally and try to understand that. Because every word, of course, see, our problem with us is our use of vocabulary is limited. And we have used that vocabulary in a particular context for such a length of time that it becomes difficult for us to understand it in any other manner rather. Whereas all those possibilities are there. Whenever we use any word, all those possibilities are there. All that we are trying to do here is open up those possibilities and then try to apply that to see whether it makes sense. When you say movement, yati paramam gatim, it says yati also means move, travel. In Sanskrit also the same confusion can come. And it is because of that confusion only, because of that kind of interpretation only, even moksha in Puranas and all that, and even other philosophical systems, they say that the Atma has to move to some place and then get merged with, because even the word merger, another example I'm giving you, we discussed about that yesterday in Gita class, right?
Yes.
The word merger also gives a wrong thing. Two things were there, they have now merged into one. If you understand it that way, then there is no Advaita Vedanta, there is only Dvaitam. Whereas Upanishad says Advaitam, there is only one thing. So if there is only one thing, how can Tattvamasi, how will it make sense? So again, we have to take the word merge or aikyam or whatever word you use and try to interpret it within the acceptable meanings. I mean, you should not attribute some some strange meaning and say this is how you have to understand. Merger means what? Understanding, discovering that I was not separate at all. That is also a merger. I thought there were two different things, but I now discovered that there were no different things. So that discovery itself is called merger. Merger of my misunderstanding with understanding. So like that, whenever we are talking words, whether it is in Sanskrit or whether we have, rough translation in English, we should be open to all these possibilities. And that is what Vedanta is all about, understanding the nuances of the use of, language. We cannot bind ourselves or box ourselves into one particular meaning only and then try to work out how does it make sense. That won't happen.
Thank you, Guruji. That was such a
more
beautiful.
and more you listen, more and more you, assimilate this knowledge, the more and more all these things will become clear.
Thank you, Guruji. That was just a very beautiful clarification and very, I would say, clear
Yeah.
and beautifully said. Thank you, Guruji. It actually cleared one of my doubts. Hari Om. But I will continue to listen to the talks, but also I think after each talk, spend a lot of time going carefully through this. It's been very eye-opening. Thank you. This class
that's
especially.
very important, because whatever is taught, you must think about it on your own. Just because
Yes.
I am saying it or some gurus has said, Acharya said, you need not blindly swallow them. Conviction of the teaching is the most important thing in the spiritual journey. That is the speciality of Vedanta. You can dismiss everything and say Vedanta is all humbug if you are convinced it is humbug. But for that also you have to come out with a reason why you are saying it is humbug, isn't it? You can't just dismiss it saying, oh, it's all it doesn't appear to be right. That is not an expression. Many people say, no, I don't agree with, because it doesn't appear to be right. Now, what do you mean by doesn't appear to be right? Because appearances can differ from people to people. You must establish that it is not right with your own arguments, with your own interpretation. then it can be acceptable as not right. Till such time, you will have to take the premise that this is right. So that is how we have to proceed.
Guruji.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other question? Nothing? Okay. We'll then wind up today and continue next Sunday. Hari Om. Thank
Hari
you.
Om. Thank you.